Hello everyone and welcome back to a short reviews video. This is a monthly segment about those albums that I didn't feel like talking about them or having that much to say about them or making a full review of them. It's about albums where some of them I think that are okay and decent and I do recommend for you to check out, and there are others that I don't really enjoy as much. It's about albums that go from 6 plus to a 4 minus, and without further ado, let's get into the video. At first we have this brand new album of Clams Casino, whose I see the potential of going to these elements of instrumental hip hop and cloud rap. However, most of the elements and the sounds on this thing are not as intriguing compared to some of his previous efforts. As far as there are some nice melodies, it doesn't have the dark aesthetic of some of the previous projects, and even for just a 30-minute long album, it feels really boring and easily forgettable, so it's just a 6 minus out of 10 for me. This is a brand new collaboration with Mount Eerie and Jules Doiron. This is the second part of Lost Wisdom, which in my opinion it doesn't manage to stand out as much compared to some of the previous efforts from Mount Eerie. It doesn't have that much of an emotional impact, though the lyrics are still quite descriptive and quite poetic, but I don't even see that much of a great chemistry between Mount Eerie and Jules Doiron. I don't think they always complement each other all that well together. Other than that though, it's a decent indie folk effort. I'll just give this album a 6 out of 10. Even though I'm not the hugest fan of some of the previous works from More Mother, it's definitely one of those artists that I truly see the potential for something better in the future, because it combines lots of elements of sound that I like with industrial and experimental hip hop. However, I still think that she hasn't managed to create her magnum opus. This album as well offers some great moments. There are some really nice moments to it, but in general it's another album that feels a bit forgettable with not that much of a punch or something that memorable to it. I like the deliveries though from this thing. I like this spoken word feel, and I think lyrically it's an amazing album. So for me it's a 6 out of 10. Have a Nice Life was a band that blended lots of different sounds and genres together, and their debut, Death Consciousness, is easily one of the most praised albums in the underground scene. With this brand new release over here, Sea of Worry, I think there are some amazing moments. I love tracks like Trespassers W and Lords of Testosterone. Unfortunately, what's the thing that mostly drags this album down in my opinion, it's the mixing and the production, which is really bad in my opinion. I mean, I get this feel of shoegaze, black gaze, and post-punk. However, still I don't really like the direction they took with the production and the sound of this thing. And as far as there are some nice ideas and nice progressions here and there, I like some of the shifts in some of the tracks in the second halves. However, there are some tracks like the ambient filler Everything We Forget and also the really lengthy one Destinos, which are extremely forgettable and uninteresting cuts. I wish more tracks would have this really nasty aesthetic of Lords of Testosterone, but what we get over here is an album that leaves a lot to be desired, so for me it's just a 5 plus out of 10. Liturgy makes once again such a pretentious album that goes into this sort of transcendental black metal style, and it feels like such a pretentious and try-hard album. Even some of the glitch elements that this album constantly uses throughout its entirety, after a point it gets extremely repetitive and kind of annoying. And those sort of classical music MIDI portions, they just sound really bad and quite off. As far as there are some intense blast beats and detailed production, the whole thing is just really boring and tries so hard to be something really that different, which to an extent, yeah, it's a unique album. I wouldn't say that there are lots of albums in the black metal genre that combine elements of glitch and electronic music and be as weird and as obscure. But all of that doesn't necessarily make it a great album. And for that reason, I'm just going to give it a 5 minus out of 10. This new album from Peter Brodsman is easily one of the most challenging things I've heard, not only in jazz music, not only from this year, but from possibly like ever. And that's because this album is just solo saxophone in its entirety. It's an entire album with just saxophone. And that's it. I can truly give that Peter Brodsman is an exceptional musician, definitely one of the most important ones when it comes to this whole free improvisation avant-garde style. But this is an album that I don't see myself coming back to. This is only for those people who are a lot into jazz music and for those who just want something challenging, I guess, because this is not something that you hear every day. For me though, it's just a 5 out of 10, mainly because this thing was just too hard to decipher. Here we have a PC music related artist, Hannah Diamond, which goes to this whole bubblegum bass electropop futuristic sound of music. And so far I haven't found works from Hannah Diamond that really impress me, and with this album in particular it easily has some of the cringiest and some of the most annoying vocals I've ever heard in an album. Like, I really don't like this extremely exaggerated use of autotune. At some points it gets quite obnoxious and there's not really that much instrumentally that would save this album. So for me it's just a 4 out of 10. Really not liking this album. Getting into the whole PC music bandwagon, we also have a brand new release from Girlfriend of the Year, a really short one, and it's another artist whose works I haven't been a fan of so far. I really can't stand this all over the place glitchy production that feels that has no rhyme or reason, and the vocals most of the time are really annoying. This album over here goes into a bit of a different direction. It tries to just focus in a specific idea and sort of change it up and progress through it several times. I still don't think it's a great album, but at least it doesn't have that many annoying vocals to it, so that's a bit of a plus. But still, this is another work from Girlfriend of the Year that I don't like. This is just a 4 minus out of 10. Getting into the technical death metal ones, we have the second album from Blood Incantation, which is an album that it's okay, it's decent. I think it's a nice technical death metal album, but other than that, I don't really see that much of the hype behind this album. I think it's quite standard and quite okay for its genre. I like the production to this thing. I like some of the really nasty and heavy riffs and blast beats, and some of the progressions are actually quite solid. But other than that, I think it's just a decent album and don't see that much of the hype behind it. So with that being said, yeah, it's a 6 plus out of 10. I quite enjoyed the new Blood Incantation album. And the last one we have is Death Atlas by Cattle Decapitation, which in my opinion it was a bit of a disappointing album. Even though I never was the hugest fan of Cattle Decapitation, I at least appreciated and liked some of the works from the Anthropocene Extinction and Monolith of Inhumanity. However, with this one, as far as the production is good and there are some really intense and great performances, some of the clean vocals and the choruses on this thing are not that good. It tries to sound a bit like Anal Nathrak, but it's not that well done. Like I said, as far as production goes and sound and performances in general, it's quite good, but still a bit of a disappointment considering some of their better works in the past. So I'm just going to give it a 5 plus out of 10. And that's all I have for today. These are the albums I had to talk about from November 2019. What's your opinion on these albums? Like them, dislike them, why? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.